Hare Ram Krishna, Hare Ram Krishna, Hare Ram Krishna. Today's topic is about the tripod of life. There is the three references for judging the astrological results. This is the basic technique or the basic dictum which has been mentioned by Parashara himself in the Brihad Parashar Hora Shastra, and it has been discussed and proposed by various other acharyas like Satyacharya for something which is something fundamental to astrology. But unfortunately, I have not seen many people following these dictums. So, in this topic, I am just going to iterate on something which has been said by the gurus and the acharyas. So, not only ascendant, we have three reference points. So, whenever we judge any particular result, we should judge it from ascendant, from the sun ascendant, and from the moon ascendant also. So, sun, moon, and lagna. These three are the reference points to be used for judging any particular bhava. Lagna is the level of body. Moon is the level of mind, and sun is the level of soul. These three are the three levels of existence for any individual. One can exist at the level of body, one can exist at the level of mind, and one exists at the level of soul. The desire which is coming from the soul level is very highest in terms of intensity. Something which is desired by the soul can make somebody do anything possible to achieve it. Whereas if it is at the very crude level of the mind or at just a temporary level of moon or mind, then it may die down very soon. But if it is coming from the soul, then it results into a very long term effect or something that has been desired by the individual from several lives, from several births. These are basically desires that has come to us, that has come to the individual in the causal body. That is called Karan Sharir. Karan Sharir is like the seed of all the unfulfilled desires and all the unfulfilled karmas that one has ever desired to do or desired to experience. That body, it transmigrates from one birth to another birth. That way, it it goes on and on and on till all the desires are fulfilled. But eventually, it happens that desires are never to be vanquished. Desires, they just keep on increasing. This is our practical experience also. There is nobody whose desires are fulfilled, even if they have billions and billions in their account. That there was a story of Andrew Carnegie that when he was dying, he had some he had some billions, like tens of billions. So when his friend came close to him at the deathbed, he asked, "So Andrew, you must be dying a fulfilling life. You must be quite fulfilled that you lived the life to its thorough end." To which Andrew replied, "No, it was not a fulfilling life because I'm still dying a very poor person. I had earned only $10 billion. I'm dying I'm dying short of $90 billion. I aimed for 100 billions." So even the person who has so many thousands and thousands of crores in their account, they are living unfulfilled lives. So what about common people who hardly have their means to ends? So the bottom line is, if you are the poor of the poor or the rich of the rich, you don't have your desires fulfilled. Whatever you get, you take it for granted. And then the new desires come into your mind and you start running after them. So those desires that remain unfulfilled, they go as a seed in the causal body. Now why have those desires remained unfulfilled? That's because, just like for any seed to sprout and become a very strong and sturdy tree, it requires environment. It requires several other factors such as sunlight, water, moisture, earth, and proper humidity. In the same way, for the desire, for the seed of desire to become manifest, it requires proper environment. Without the environment, it doesn't fulfill. So even though those desires are there in your causal body at the level of soul, it may never get fulfilled. It may never manifest in this life just because the environment is not conclusive. Environment is not conducive. You may not have proper resources. You may not have sufficient social obligations. So that may hinder to manifest such desires. And those hidden desires, they again go on till next birth and next birth, and this goes on and on. So that's the causal body, which is nothing but the group of sanskaras. Then at the level of mind, it is important to judge a bhava from moon apart from lagna, because that's something at the level of mind. Uh, it shows your desire from within that you are consciously aware of. So let me tell you that current serving that I was talking about, it is something which you are not even aware of. It takes there are very rare fews who have known what actually their soul wants, or in the state of meditation, in the state of deep concentration, when all the fringe thoughts, they have disappeared. At that point of time, you have a glimpse of what your soul actually desires. What is that utmost thing that you want at that point of time? But at the level of mind, you tend to have from the Karan Sharir, it goes to the level of mind, and then you create the image of what has to happen in your mind, and then it actually happens in the real world. So these are the three levels, from the soul to the mind and to the physical world. So that represents those three ascendants. That is the lagna, the moon, and the sun. So whenever one is judging results, one has to look at all these three references. In fact, Vimshotri Dasha is supposed to be judged from all these three reference points. And this is how it is done, that the Mahadasha, whenever you are seeing the results from the level of Mahadasha, you should look at it from the reference of Sun, because something which is so deeply desired by your soul must have very long term impact. And we know that Mahadashas are long as 18 and 20 years. So from the sun, it gives a broad perspective of what your soul wants during that particular period. So one has to look at the position and the lordship of planet, of the Mahadasha Lord from sun. From the perspective of mind, it is relatively short term, but it is relatively longer term than the physical body. So from the level of moon, one has to look at the antara, the antardasha lord. Okay. So whatever results are coming from the antardasha lord, it has to be judged from moon. And then the dasha lord. Okay. Dasha lord one has to see from the ascendant, to see how the physical world it is manifesting. Likewise, these three reference points has been extensively used in Sudarshan Chakra Dasha also. This Dasha has been mentioned by Parashara himself that it is the most important Dasha for Kali Yuga, because in Kali Yuga there will not be people who will have higher intelligence. A higher intelligence means the intelligence, or there is no proper term for this in English. It is called prajna. So the prajna that one has when one reaches the level of highest meditation in the level of samadhi, that prajna is not available to people easily in Kali Yuga, because people are so distracted in Kali Yuga. So Parashara mentioned a very simple dasha, kind of layman kind of dasha for people of Kali Yuga, and gave some thumb rules for judging the results based on this dasha. So this is Sudarshan Chakra dasha that Parashara has mentioned, and in this dasha he has extensively used the concept of the sun, moon, and lagna, all these three reference points. But today's topic was basically how to judge a particular bhava from these reference points. So this is the principle that one should follow when judging a particular bhava. So let's take example of fifth house. So fifth house stands for your children. It stands for your buddhi. It stands for your mantra, punya. It stands for the followers that you have. And these points should be judged not only from ascendant but also from moon and sun also. So let us take so let's continue with our fifth house example. So from the fifth house, uh, first look at the fifth house, the planets which are there in the fifth house from lagna. Then look at the lord of fifth house, and then look at all the aspects which are there on the fifth house. All this is from lagna, and note down these planets. Number one, the planets which are there in the fifth house from lagna, the lord of fifth house, and third, the aspects on the fifth house. Then move on to the next reference point, that is moon. So from the moon reference point, again look at the fifth house from moon. Now to do this, one has to look at the bhav chakra, because lagna could be very off. So just like for lagna, you look at the bhav chakra from lagna. For judging the result from moon reference, one has to change the bhav chakra reference point for moon, and likewise from sun also you have to make the bhav chakra from sun, taking into account the degrees of sun. So again from the moon, look at the fifth house, see what planets are deposited there, then look at the lord of fifth house, then look at all the aspects which are there on the fifth house. Similarly, then go to the sun, the reference of sun, create the bhav chakra from sun, and look at the fifth house from sun, look at the lord of fifth house from sun, and the aspects which are there on the sun. So when you combine effect of all these factors from these three reference points, there will be one or two planets that will have maximum impact on this particular bhava. That planet will stand out. So when you are determining which planet is having maximum influence, you just have to count how many times that planet occurs, and that particular planet will become instrumental in realizing the results of this power. You can also combine this approach with Arudha Lagna and Arudha of the Bhava that you are judging. So here you can also take into account fifth house from Arudha Lagna, the Lord of fifth house from Arudha Lagna, and the effects and the aspects on the fifth house from Arudha Lagna to determine it more accurately. Also, you have to look at the A5, that is the tangible aspect of the fifth house. So that again you have to see the occupants of A5, you have to see the lordship of A5 and the aspects on A5. So when you take into account these additional factors, you can also judge exactly which planet is going to be instrumental in giving rise to a tangible result in this world, because now you are taking into account the Arudha also. So basically AL, A5, Sun, Moon, Lagna, these five factors, their lordship, their aspects, you have to combine all those planets together to judge the result. Now I'll share with you one example in which based on this approach, one can even judge the ascendant and the nakshatra lord or the rashi lord of the spouse based on this technique. This is the Jhora software, and I'm going to share with you. Uh, Let us judge the seventh house in the life of this native. So let us create the the bhav kundali from lagna. Okay. So one has to see the bhav kundali from ascendant, from moon, as well as from sun. So from the ascendant, you see, is Libra lagna, and the seventh house is Aries. There is no planet over there, so that's okay. One has to look at the Lord. Lord is Mars, and then the aspect on this sign. So it has aspect from Jupiter from the seventh house, and that's the only aspect that it has. So basically, Mars and Jupiter, these are the influencing factor from ascendant. Now, to see the effects from Moon, one has to look at the Bhav Kundali from the reference of Moon. So let me change it to Moon. Okay. So from Moon, you see that now Venus has come in the seventh house from Moon. Earlier, it was in the 12th house from Lagna. So changing the reference to Moon has shifted Venus to the seventh house. So okay, so let us look at the seventh house from Moon, which is having Venus now, and the Lord of seventh house is Sun, and the aspect on this house is only from Moon. So Moon, Venus, and Sun. These three are the influencing factors from Moon. Now let us look at from the from the reference point of Sun. Okay, so from reference point of Sun, seventh house is Pisces, and there is no planet in the Pisces. Lord of Pisces is Jupiter, and the aspect on seventh house is that of Mercury, Sun, and Venus. So Mercury, Sun, Venus, and Jupiter. These four are the aspects on the seventh house. So this is the influence of influence on seventh house from these three reference points. Now let us look at the the effect from Arudha Lagna. Okay. So again we have changed the Bhavachalit from ascendant itself. So let us look at the seventh house from Arudha Lagna, which is uh, seventh house is Aquarius, and it has moon in it, and the lord of this is Saturn and Rahu. An aspect on it is from Jupiter and Mars. Okay, so Jupiter and Mars have aspect on it. Now let us look at the A7. A7 has Rahu. Lord of this is Mercury, and aspect on this is Jupiter and Mars. Okay, so when we see all these five reference points, we see that the Jupiter and Mars have the highest impact because Jupiter and Mars they are aspecting the A7 also. Jupiter and Mars they are aspecting seventh house from Ardha Lagna also, and uh, from ascendant Mars is the lord of seventh house. So when we combine all these effects, we find that the highest impact is coming from Mars and Jupiter, and the next is Saturn. So spouse of this person has Chandra Lagna as Scorpio. The lord of Scorpio is Mars, so that shows impact of Mars. Ascendant of his spouse is Sagittarius. Lord of that sign is Jupiter. So Jupiter has shown the impact, and then the person's spouse is Anuradha Nakshatra, whose lord is Saturn. So just now we saw how we can judge the ascendant and the nakshatra lord, nakshatra and the rashi of the native of the spouse based on this technique. Now one has to be careful that you can find out the impact, you can find out the most influential planet related to any bhava based on this technique. But when it comes to accurately judging the ascendant lord or the rashi lord or the nakshatra lord, it becomes very difficult. So sometimes even for this combination, like when Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn was the combining factor, you may even predict the Dhanishta nakshatra also, because Dhanishta is having the lordship of Saturn, and Dhanishta is there in the Aquarius that has Saturn as the lord, and the nakshatra lord is Mars. So Mars, Saturn, Saturn, Mars, both will work here. Also, the ascendant lord is from Jupiter. It may so happen that the uh, Saturn is the ascendant lord and Jupiter is the nakshatra lord. So these roles may interchange, but overall you'll find that the spouse has major impact of these planets in the kundali. Okay, so you can apply it in your kundali and see how beautifully it works, and you can judge accurate results based on it. So that's all from my side. And finally, आप सभी के भीतर बैठे परमात्मा को प्रणाम करता हूँ.